All right, we will start in a few seconds. Please find your seat. All right, welcome to this session on smart urban regeneration. My name is Søren Smidt-Jensen. I'm with the Danish Architecture Center in Copenhagen, and I'm also advisor to the International Federation for Housing and Planning, also located in Copenhagen in Denmark. The focus of this session is how to reactivate our cities. And our speakers will represent perspectives from France, from Sweden, from Brazil, and from Singapore. And they will also represent perspectives from government, from the private sector, from business, and from academia. And our speakers is, first of all, Ilmar Reepalu, sitting here next to me. Ilmar is the former mayor of Malmo, that's the third largest city in Sweden. Now he's vice president of the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions. We'll have Sylvie Spalmacin-Roma, who's the vice president of Smarter Cities Europe with IBM. We'll have Cheryl Song, who's with the Future Cities Lab in Singapore and also the ETH Institute in Zurich. And finally, we'll have Alexandra Prado from AgoraLab, a research institution in Brazil. But let's go straight to it, and I would like to give the floor to Ilmar Reepalu first, please.
First of all, thank you a lot. How should I put on the first slide? I just do like that? No? Somebody puts it on for me. While they're doing that, first of all, I'm very happy to be invited here to Barcelona and to take part of this. Do you know how to do? No. Could you put on the... No, it's on, yes. I'm an architect from the beginning as my profession. I've been working as a city planner for about 15 years, but the last 19 years I've been the mayor of the city of Malmo. And Malmo is a city located in the southern part of Sweden, just opposite Copenhagen. And a Danish philosopher, Søren Kierkegaard, says that we understand our lives backwards, but we have to live them forwards. So what is the city of Malmo about? This is the 20th century city of Malmo, a very competitive industrial town, the world's biggest shipyard, very efficient shipyard after the Second World War. And here we had all the working class heroes working. And of course, when they made a forecast, a master plan in the mid of 1966 for how we should look the year 2000, it looked like this. You can see there are a lot of industrial areas up there because that was where we were living from. But then things happened. This is our very, very beautiful shipyard. Became a brownfield area. That was mid of 90s when I was elected as a mayor. And of course, it's from a period from 1990, full employment, and 1995, 22% unemployed people. Most of our industries was closed down because, of course, the Berlin Wall was taken down in 1989. Lots of these industries went to other parts in Eastern Europe where the cost for labor force was about 10 or 15% the cost of Sweden. But 1992, we had another very important session. You remember the Rio session, 1992, that was focusing, the first time the UN was focusing about the Millennium Development Goals, how to fight poverty, how to get water, primary health care, education to all the people in the world, and focusing the first time also on the climate issue, the road to Kyoto, the road to Nagoya, working with this desertification, deforestation, how to handle lower the emission of the greenhouse gases. And that was also a part, when an industrial city collapses, it looks for new industries because that's a logic for the city. And that's also where the political power is and the economic power is in the city. we started to think in another way. We built, of course, a vision project where we involved the people, the business sector, the universities into that vision project. But we said, look here, the city is not working on its own. The city is relying on its hinterland. It must work together with its hinterland. We don't make plans for the city, make the plans for the region, the factual region where people are working and finding the way of living. So this is the city of Malmo, and this is the region of Skåne with about 1.2 million people living in it. And also, at that time, we had a discussion building the bridge over to Copenhagen, a bridge that should link the Nordic countries with the mainland Europe. And that bridge was supposed to be between Malmö and Copenhagen. And that bridge was very much discussed from young people as a dinosaur project. You're building a bridge for highways, creating more traffic, more congestion, more pollution, and also a bridge in a strait where we need this North Sea water coming into the Baltic Sea because the Baltic Sea is suffering from having too little of the fresh water, the salty water coming into it. So that was a very tough discussion we had, how to change that. And of course the bridge, when they built it, then the bridge was a bridge combining road traffic and train traffic, and the most important part of it was the train traffic. That bridge made it possible for us to make a natural region, a region between Denmark and Sweden, a region between Copenhagen and Malmö. And in that way, of course, it was very important that the commuting should be environmentally friendly. So that's why we started to open up new railroads, electrifying railroads. And the period from 1999 till 2008, we enhanced the rail commuting with 300%. That has never been seen in the Nordic countries because we were talking about closing down the railroads at that time. And of course, also see Copenhagen as not a place where we're going and have an amusement, but a place where we really can go and work, go and study, and see us as one metropolitan area. Back to that brownfield area again. The discussion 1994 or 1990 already was that this should be a part for SMEs. Here we should have the new Saab factory for having the Saab cars, and here we had the Saab aircraft factory for making the Saab Fairchild planes. That was the plan, what was the plan for it. But the Saab automobile factory closed down after 1 year, so then this all was evacuated. We didn't get any SMEs into this part. We only had the submarines that were still produced in this part here. So that was when we had to try to rethink it and see, could we use this area that was blocking the city of Malmö and Hanseatic city from the best part of the environment, the sea? Could we find solutions that should be applicable for other cities around the Baltic, for Stettin, for Gdynia Gdansk, for Klaipeda, for other cities that could use the same, how to get rid of these old industries, these coal harbors, to make these cities the best of the Hanseatic cities. That was the challenge. And we started here on this brownfield area. Here we had the first European housing exhibition. 500 flats were produced here, and this was the city of tomorrow. This is 100% fueled by locally produced renewable energy. And we used, of course, good architecture for this and had a lot of discussion that it was expensive houses, of course, but making this a CO2 neutral housing area, that was the most important thing. That was a change of the image of the city. You can see here also in the buildings where the solar cells here are integrated in the buildings. The photovoltaic is on top. This was opened 2001, and of course we get all the reward for being the best example in Europe at that time. And this is the way that we are doing in a subarctic country. We collect the summer heat in these collectors, pump it down into the aquifer, where we store it in this cracked limestone. And in the winter, we pump up that 24, 25 grades water and use that for district heating in the houses. And in the winter, we pump down, because we want to have a balance in the aquifer, then we pump down the cold winter water. And in the summer, we pump up that cold water and use that as district coolings in the flats. And all the electricity needed we get from one wind generator that was staying in the harbor. So with that, we got this very good balance of energy. And also this building, the Santiago Calatrava building, the turning torso, that's a sustainable building also. All the kitchen sinks, for instance, you take all the garbage goes down there and is stored and used then for fermentation to get biogas out of it. But of course, this mitigation with the buildings, that is very important. But also the other thing, we have been talking about flooding, storm water, lots of rain is coming. And you know, that is not stopping. We will have that more and more storm water will come here. We that are a little older, we remember Bob Dylan was singing about hard rain's gonna fall. But now we have these hard rains. And how are we going to take care of it? Of course, we started the Green Roof Academy for Europe for about 15 years ago, taking care of the storm water and getting it in an open system, not putting into the plums, not putting it into the wastewater treatment system, because when you have a lot of water, then the treat water system is not taking care of that. That is going directly out into the recipient. So in that way, we created also biological what do you call it? Yeah, yes. All these, you know, here you have the dragonflies, you have the frogs, the salamanders and all these, and you have that not in a Natura 2000 area, but you have it just in where you are living. And that is very important to see that that is a part of the city. Now I come to another challenge, of course, and that we have also been discussing in many places, not in my backyard. This place, these landfills are only loved by rats and seagulls. And that we said that here we must make a change of that also. In Malmo, 40% of all the waste that is recycled. That is metal and glass and plastic, and these things are recycled. And the other 60%, that is used to get energy out of it. The organic waste, there we get the fermentation process and biogas out of that. And the combustible one, there we get electricity and heat water. 95% of all our buildings in Malmo are connected with a district heating system, and we are 310,000 people living in the city. Here we make a system where we separate the organic waste from the combustible waste. And here you can see the result from the year 2000 until 2011. You can see that here at the year 2000, 55% of all the waste that went to landfill. And then today we are down to 1.9% that goes to landfill. All the rest is regained energy out of that. And that means, of course, that we don't have any discussions of new landfill areas. We can take care of it in a much better and sensible way. And of course, it's money in it. The amount of energy that we got in that way, that is equivalent as we did before. Then we had used 173 cubic meters of oil. That cost about $100 million a year. That money can be used for building up the system where we are collecting the waste, taking care of the waste, and in that way make it as an asset, in fact, and a resource. And of course, you can see this is an incinerator. I think it's beautiful, like in Hilton Hotel already. And the emission out of it is about 1/10 of the permission and no dioxins and things like that, because, of course, we are burning the gas afterwards, so they get no biogas out of it. Yes. Now I make it quicker. And, of course, the second challenge is taking care of the traffic. All our buses since 1997 are fueled by gas, from the beginning fossil gas, today 50% by biogas that we are producing ourselves. Within 5 years, all the buses will be fueled by biogas that we are producing by ourselves. Now I come to another question. The city is not only about streets, squares, parks, and buildings. The city, in fact, is about the people living there. And they are those that are creating all the activities that is important. And here we had a discussion to change the city to a knowledge-based city. So here we built the new university. There was a lot of discussion. The government wanted to put that outside the city where the land is more cheap. But we said we want to have that just in the city center, because that's a generator for city life. 25,000 students. That creates all this life that we want to have in the city and change the image of the city, of course. That is a very beautiful building for it. That's a library for and that was designed by Diener and Diener, the Swiss architects. And of course, we get this city life here just close to the city center, where now the city center is moved out to the sea, where it before was blocked. Now I'm running it out, I say running out, but all these students, okay, these create that city life that we want to have, all this bustling life in the evenings in the city center. And of course, we got then awarded for this. And I'm showing 2 awards. We got maybe hundreds of awards. This award we got because we were 2009, we were the city had the best economic growth in Sweden. And 4 months later, we got the best prize that you can get from the UN, the Scroll of Honor, for becoming the best eco-city for the 21st century. So we could combine the economic growth with green jobs, and in that way also be on the forefront of creating a sustainable city. So now I just run over this here, showing how we are building the wind parks and like that. But and then this is the next area where we are working together with Ian and Schneider, where we are building this smart grid system now. And oh, by the way, this where we had the European Song Contest here. That was a very beautiful one. That's a Danish one, of course. And here you can see how I just ran past this. And the vision for the next, of course, it's 100% renewable energy. So this picture shows how Malmo looked in the center of Malmo 25 years ago. One big shipyard, 6,500 people employed in one company. This is how it looked about 15 years ago. A brownfield area, evacuated, filthy, and that has been cleaned. And this is how it looked some 5 years ago. Now we have about 8,000 people working here in 300 different companies, and another 8,000 people are living here. And it's still only 60% that is used of it, so we are still expanding the area. So this was the story that I wanted to show how we change the city of Malmo, working with, first of all, having the vision of building a sustainable society where we are addressing the building, the mobility, and of course the energy production and consumption, and how we take care of the waste and the wastewater. So I can then continue afterwards maybe. Great. Thank you, Lars.
Thank you, Ilmar, and please, Sylvie, if you would like to go.
Okay.
To the stage. Hello, please.
So, yeah, the charts are not showing up, so I don't know how to switch to the presentation.
Could the technical staff come and assist?
So look, while they are managing that, I am leading Smarter Cities for IBM in Europe. And what I am going to share with you here is a series of examples where clearly, on the same land, elected officials and partners, public and private, worked together in order to totally transform the area. I am not talking about architectural transformation. I am talking about making the area livable, sustainable, more attractive, and for a future that is a livable future, taking care of all of the things we like to talk when we talk about sustainable planet, but some areas in the world really did it because, in fact, they were desperate in solving their issue. So let's start with just 1 minute video from a place you will discover very quickly. So let's start with the video. So now you see all my charts. That's not a problem. I do not want to upset our client that did the video for this. And do we have the sound? Yes, if you could put the sound, please.
Regional water authorities have to cope with increasing water management problems and the costs that come with it. Higher sea level, less water from the rivers, more intensive rainfall and longer periods of drought.
We talked for a long time about what some so-called integrated water resources management, but these different systems that we need to integrate, for example, water treatment and flood management, they don't talk to each other. There's no exchange of data, and if we improve the software and the way they interact, we can earn a lot of functionality at basically no cost.
The vision on the digital delta from regional water authorities is to remove obstacles that hinder the free flowing of data for all.
The parties that have to be engaged in this program are parties from the public sector, from the private sector and from the research.
And then there's IBM, that's the big ICT integrator that has to glue these parties together in a way by providing the tools to exchange the data and knowledge.
The digital delta
So
will improve the
if
water
we can now
management system.
stop the video and go to the presentation where we will see a summary. So you understood, here is the example of Netherlands as a country and the Delft region and Rotterdam clearly being the area in Netherlands where they are going to test a totally new system where we are going to help the country in taking multiple sources of data related to water in order to better analyze, anticipate issues. And it's clearly important for such a country where you have 55% of the population living below sea level. In the video, maybe you understood that as we started the project, they realized that the flood management system didn't share data with the water management system. And everybody understands that it costs a lot to create potable water, and not having the flood management system being able to talk to the water management system, then you do not activate the pumps on time in order to prevent potable water to be damaged from flooding. So not only to talk about safety issues and the things related to removing the cost per year, 7 billion euros is the cost of managing the water for a country like Netherlands. In better leveraging the multiple source of data already existing, I am not suggesting that we put more sensors or more systems on the landscape of Netherlands to get the data. Those sensors, the intelligent pumps that they already have, the 15,000 kilometers of dikes that are already instrumented are providing all of the data that are needed. The difference, and this is why we call about true regeneration, is that now all of these data will be collected, analyzed in a system with predictive capabilities applied to the landscape in order to help the country, the regions, and the cities to better manage and also help the country not lose GDP points because they didn't anticipate issues. So Here is the chart that is summarizing all the issues and what has to be worked out for such a country. Yesterday, Digital Delta came up as a finalist. Unfortunately, they didn't win in the category, but already being a finalist on innovation is great in such a Smart City World Expo. So congratulations to them. Now, other places in the world who had to absolutely change the way they were doing things are particularly islands like islands of Malta. Here, electricity and water had to join up forces together. Water is produced in Malta, 0.5% of the potable water comes from desalination. Therefore, there is the need for using a lot of electricity. The government has been developing the economy of Malta by bringing more tourism every year. 6 years ago, then Malta was not able to provide enough electricity at the peak hours to serve not only the inhabitants, but the tourists. And therefore, here, the future was either put a new power plant, fossil energy, again, damaging even more the carbon footprint of the island. And that was the traditional way of doing things. Well, instead of doing that, the government, the electricity company, and the water company joined forces in order to go for a true innovative project where today in the world, I think it is the only place where the electricity and water company worked together to equip the water and the electricity network with 250,000 smart meters. Now, what is smart? It's not the meters. What is smart is the usage of the data and how they give back the data to the citizen, leveraging not only real-time information to understand where are the leakage in the network and act immediately upon it, instead of waiting 1 month, 1 week, or even more in some cases to fix and repair the issue. But even better, every time we give back the data to the citizen, real time, then we contribute to it. Because then the amount of euros or dollars we spend because we take 2 minutes or 10 minutes more with our shower, we translate it into our weekly budget. And then we rather prefer go maybe to the cinema and reduce the amount of water we use. So the other part of it, and I will go very quick on this one, is a consortium in which we experimented on another island here, the island of Bornholm in Denmark, where we proved that it was not only good to leverage car on electricity, but it's even more better to make sure that the electricity for those cars are provided by renewable energy. And at the beginning, it was very hard to commit that 2,000 electric vehicles on the island of Bornholm would be powered only by renewable energy. And at the beginning, to prove it would work, we used only one renewable energy, which was the wind. And everybody understands that when the wind is not there, there is no energy. Well, we proved it because, again, the power of data, when you manage all of the information and you understand that 80% of the time, all of us, we do not use our car, then during that 80% of time, the energy that is available in an electric car can be used in the grid, making sure that when you need your car, then it is powered appropriately. And here it is a collaborative sharing of data where citizens participate to the grid, and it is totally new and innovative because instead of pushing energy in the grid, whatever the demand is there, then we balance the grid and we take the electricity that is needed when it is required. So I will end with this example, saying that regeneration at the end is to leverage the power of what we call the natural resource that are the data, analyze them, take algorithm to predict the near future or longer term future, but it has to be centered and driven back to citizen services so that the technology is translated into actions for better life, better attractivity of landscape, and in a way that is sustainable and creating economic development. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sylvie. Now I would like to introduce Monica Fein. Monica has arrived now, and she's the mayor of the city of Rosario in Argentina. And please put on your headphones now, because this will be in Spanish, I believe. Please. Could we get the technical staff again to assist with the PowerPoint?
Bueno, buenos días. Disculpen la demora, pero acabamos de llegar. Es un gusto estar aquí. Somos una ciudad de Argentina, Rosario. Quizás aquí en Barcelona, si digo la ciudad de Messi, sería suficiente, pero para todos los que están aquí, una ciudad de Argentina que está a 170 kilómetros de la ciudad, 300 kilómetros de la ciudad de Buenos Aires, 170 kilómetros de la capital de nuestra región, de nuestra provincia Santa Fe, que tiene, como aquí dice, unos 17.000 hectáreas de superficie y aproximadamente 1 millón de habitantes, con una región metropolitana también importante de 1.400.000 habitantes, y con un recurso muy particular, que estamos a orillas del río Paraná, un río de 50 kilómetros de ancho, con 70 kilómetros de puertos, de donde sale la mayor capacidad exportadora de Argentina. Por lo tanto, estamos en un área privilegiada de la República Argentina. Obviamente, como todas las ciudades de Latinoamérica, tenemos desafíos con aumento de la población, con una gran expansión del parque automotor, pero que vamos y hemos trabajado fuertemente con proyectos integrados en la ciudad, con planes estratégicos. Somos miembros de varias redes de ciudades. Creemos que las ciudades inteligentes aprenden de buenas prácticas de otras ciudades y por lo tanto somos parte no solo de Mercociudades, sino de CGLU, de CIDEU, de Metrópolis, ciudades que compartimos experiencia. En ese camino también hemos firmado el Pacto de México de Ciudades Sustentables y hemos producido cambios importantes en la ciudad, como el crecimiento de los espacios verdes y el desarrollo del turismo. Estamos también aquí arriba en la Feria del Turismo junto a Argentina, presentando la partida del Dakar desde Rosario. Por eso, esta realidad de cambios de nuestras ciudades, sobre todo latinoamericanas, nos obliga a trabajar mucho para generar una convivencia entre una fuerte actividad productiva, agropecuaria, también de desarrollo de software, de tecnología, con la actividad urbana, cuidando el medio ambiente y obviamente generando un ambiente de mayor cohesión social, de igualdad de oportunidades, que es el desafío que tienen nuestras ciudades. ¿Qué hemos hecho en este camino y queremos compartir con ustedes? Obviamente hemos aprovechado la articulación público-privada. Nuestras ciudades, que tienen muchas más limitaciones en el tema de las inversiones públicas deben con más esfuerzo tratar de trabajar en la articulación público-privada. En ese camino nosotros hemos logrado que todo el sistema del transporte público de la ciudad, tanto sea de ómnibus, allá decimos colectivos, taxis y todo lo que es el equipamiento municipal tenga georreferencia. También hemos logrado que esa georreferencia sea pública, es decir, sea utilizada por el usuario, tanto en pantallas inteligentes como en puestos de autoconsulta, como en dispositivos celulares que permiten a cada uno de los ciudadanos consultar antes de salir de su casa o de su trabajo el tiempo en el que va a llegar el colectivo o el ómnibus, en la parada en que lo va a tomar, en la intersección que lo va a tomar, el próximo y el próximo. A partir de esta articulación y conocimiento de GPS uno puede programar la espera de muy pocos minutos en una parada de colectivo y para nosotros hacer un uso también responsable de todo lo que es el transporte urbano, como así también el tema de los taxis, de los vehículos que están todos georreferenciados y nos permite organizar y potenciar la respuesta al ciudadano a partir de esta georreferencia. También hemos incorporado la tarjeta inteligente del transporte urbano de pasajeros, que tiene como objetivo la integración de todo el sistema, inclusive que va hacia también el alquiler de bicicletas y que nos permite con esa tarjeta sin contacto, la tarjeta del transporte urbano, realizar combinaciones, transbordos y tener un alto conocimiento de cómo se mueven los ciudadanos en nuestra ciudad. Y a partir de tener identificado inclusive a cada ciudadano, lograr un proceso de mejor respuesta en la movilidad pública. Decía que se puede encontrar a partir de SMS, de la web o de los smartphones, información que para lograr la movilidad en nuestra ciudad. También tenemos videocámaras que nos ayudan a controlar los espacios de la ciudad y a su vez dar una respuesta, ya que todo nuestro sistema está georreferenciado, rápida y adecuada al ciudadano. Y hemos incorporado recientemente mecanismos tecnológicos de captores de datos que le permiten a todos los agentes municipales, a todos los funcionarios que están en el trabajo unido a la Intendencia Municipal, a la Alcaldía, generar una información online con aquellos que tienen que también conocer el problema, sancionarlo si es necesario o corregir algunos temas. Es decir, que hemos logrado introducir a áreas de la movilidad urbana, áreas del control urbano, varios procesos importantes de articulación tecnológica y también de ida y vuelta con el ciudadano. Creemos que es un tema importantísimo para nuestras ciudades, que es lograr que todos estos procesos tecnológicos permitan a la ciudadanía participar activamente, ya sea en el cuidado del medio ambiente, en la participación de algunos temas que nos interesa que la ciudadanía participe activamente. En este aspecto decimos que la respuesta operativa que hemos logrado es mucho más eficiente en la ciudad. Tenemos algunos desafíos importantes, que es obviamente que toda esta información que tenemos nos permita mejorar las áreas de prevención y seguridad ciudadana. Por eso hemos creado algunas áreas para mejorar la respuesta, como la Agencia Municipal de Seguridad Vial y el Ente de la Movilidad de Rosario. El Ente de la Movilidad es un sistema donde participan distintos actores de la ciudad, públicos y privados, y que nos permiten dar una respuesta cada vez más adecuada a la movilidad. Estamos en el proceso de cambio de la movilidad en la ciudad y hoy tenemos una información que nos permite por primera vez en la historia de la ciudad pensar en un sistema de transporte que parte de la información de cómo se mueven los ciudadanos para ir a trabajar, para ir a estudiar, para encontrarse. También hemos creado, y me parece importante comentarlo, un centro de control de la movilidad. La verdad que vamos hacia un proceso integrador, hacia un centro integrado operativo Rosario. Para el 2015 esto significa que todas nuestras áreas estén integrados a un único centro de monitoreo y poder dar respuestas mucho más rápidas y eficientes. Para eso hemos incorporado, obviamente, como primera etapa, al Centro de Control de Tránsito, toda la red semaforizada que tenemos también conectada, es decir, que en todas las intersecciones tenemos la posibilidad de modificar la onda de semáforos y el tiempo de semáforos, utilizar, como decía, los detectores de tránsito para ver la congestión y poder ir orientando hacia el ciudadano cuando sale de su casa, en cómo moverse en la ciudad en las mejores condiciones, como también poder informarle si hay algo en su traslado, ya sea en transporte público, en su auto particular o en bicicleta o en transporte no motorizado, que tenga algún inconveniente en la ciudad y poder preverlo con anticipación al salir de su casa. Lo mismo que el centro de videovigilancia, que son cámaras distribuidas estratégicamente, que nos permite dar una respuesta desde el municipio, desde las áreas de control, mucho más adecuadas, porque también las tenemos ubicadas a partir de esta georreferencia. Decía que el desafío más importante que tenemos, aquí está, por ejemplo, cómo alguien puede ver desde de cualquiera de sus sistemas la información de la ciudad antes de salir de su casa, encontrarse en estos puntos y poder saber si hay algún hecho que pueda modificar su movilidad, poder elegir cómo moverse en la ciudad, ya que nuestras ciudades han tenido un alto aumento del transporte del parque automotor. Tenemos una página que es y Twitter que permite una información al ciudadano, es decir, la utilización de redes sociales para la información y para este ida y vuelta con los ciudadanos, un sitio web de movilidad, movilidadrosario.gov.ar, y un sistema integrado de atención ciudadana a partir de un único número. Nuestro objetivo es seguir integrando todas las acciones que hace el municipio en un único sistema, como decía, el SIOR 2015, que permita a la ciudad utilizar esta información para dar una respuesta mucho más adecuada, mucho más rápida, y también para facilitarle la vida a cada uno de los ciudadanos de nuestra ciudad. Quiero finalmente contarles también una experiencia que nos parece importante. Las ciudades creemos que son inteligentes también cuando aprenden unas de otras. En nuestro caso, la ciudad de Rosario tiene desde hace 11 años un proceso de participación ciudadana importante, que es el presupuesto participativo, que lo tomamos de Porto Alegre, pero que fuimos desarrollando, y en este momento con más de 500 proyectos propuestos por los ciudadanos, en un año de trabajo, se está a través de un sistema también inteligente, pudiendo votar cuáles son los prioritarios, cuál elige la ciudadanía, cuál plantea que deben ser priorizados por el municipio, y esto nos permite tener un gobierno local mucho más conectado, cercano y de comunicación permanente con los ciudadanos. Como verán, si bien los procesos que venimos dando junto a otras ciudades, sobre todo a ciudades que hemos tomado el desafío de mejorar la movilidad, más allá de las dificultades económicas que muchas veces esto tiene que ver justamente con aprovechar mucho mejor nuestros recursos, con hacer un ambiente mucho más sustentable y obviamente con tener mucha mayor información que nos permita dar esa respuesta que los ciudadanos en nuestras ciudades esperan. Muchísimas gracias, un gusto.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And please, Cheryl Song now from the Future Cities Lab in Singapore. So now we have a perspective from Southeast Asia, and then we will actually return to Brazil and South America afterwards with Alex.
So good afternoon. I'm glad to be here with you today to tell you more about the research going on at the Future Cities Lab in Singapore. The Future Cities Lab is a transdisciplinary research center with over 100 researchers in fields of engineering, architecture, urban design, sociology, landscape ecology, computer science, and others coming together to study how cities can become more sustainable. We are a young organization. We were only established in 2010 as the first overseas research center of the ETH Zurich, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology outside of Switzerland. So as many of my colleagues have mentioned here today, to make cities more sustainable, the technology alone is insufficient. And in order to successfully implement new designs and new technologies, the appropriate stakeholders have to be convinced and engaged from the early stages. So my role in the Future Cities Lab in Singapore is to build partnerships with the industry, government agencies, in order that we can engage them from the beginning and present the research findings of our team at the preliminary findings so that these can be discussed and debated. This also helps our researchers to sharpen their research direction and to take the projects forward. So I would like to share two things with you today. I'll first give you an overview of the research in our lab very quickly, and then I'll spend a bit more time going into one case study, Rotro Plus, what we call Rotro Plus, where multidisciplinary teams of researchers looked at a very historic part of Singapore and developed designs and proposals to make this part of Singapore more livable and more sustainable. So let me first begin with an overview of the research in our lab. We study urban sustainability at different scales, from the small scale, which is at the level of the building, the architectural typography, building technology, to the medium scale, the district, neighborhood. Here the urban planners and architects also come in. And then the large scale, what we call the territorial planning scale, where we look at Singapore, the city-state as a whole, and also the interactions between the city and as a hinterland, because as Ilmar also explained, the cities cannot exist by themselves. So very quickly, in the small scale, we have three research areas. The first, we look at developing low emissions building technologies for tropical climates. So researchers here look at topics such as radiant cooling, decentralized ventilation and dehumidification, and integrating these into a whole system with wireless sensing and control. So the results in our lab so far have been very promising. We've seen that we're able to reduce energy consumption of a building by up to 60%. And also because the systems that we have developed are very compact, 30% less space, this means that we can fit 3 floors in the space of 2 with no loss of comfort. And so the next step for these research groups are to talk to industry to see whether the technologies can be taken from our prototype lab into a real building. We also have groups looking at using robots in construction. Robotic arms, as you can imagine, are very flexible and very precise. This allows us to do mass customizations, to incorporate unique forms into the building without necessarily increasing the cost of labor and materials. We are also using robotic arms to build formwork for concrete and developing a prototype robotic tiling machine. The third group, we look at green construction materials that take into account the local context, such as available manpower skills and natural resources available locally. So one example is bamboo, and the researchers in our lab are looking at bamboo which can be found growing naturally across much of Asia, Africa, South America. And if you look at the bamboo fibers, the tensile strength of the fibers can be up to twice that of construction steel. So what the researchers are doing is to study how these bamboo fibers can replace steel as a reinforcement in concrete. The case study Rotro Plus that I will tell you about later will give you some detail about the work that we're doing in the medium scale, the urban design scale, as well as the large scale, the territorial planning scale where we look at the whole city. So I'll be quite quick here. So very briefly, in the urban design scale, we have researchers looking at the preservation of conservation and preservation of old buildings and historic buildings in Singapore. We also have researchers looking at diverse districts in Singapore, studying what makes a district diverse, looking also, besides Singapore, at Bangkok, Shenzhen, and Shanghai. And then at the large scale, we have one example would be the researchers that have developed an agent-based transport model for the whole of Singapore. And underlying all three scales of our research is actually our largest research group, which is the simulation platform here. They take in the results coming from the small, medium, and large scale and develop new techniques in data capture, simulation, modeling, and visualization to develop tools that help urban planners do urban planning or manage decision-making processes and engage stakeholders. So now the case study on Rochor. For those of you familiar with Rochor, it's a 3.5 kilometer square district in Singapore, encompassing the areas of Little India, Kampong Glam, Bras Basah, and Jalan Besar. Rochor is very interesting for our researchers because it's very diverse. We have, as you can see, varying architectural typographies. There's also a large range of functions that Rochor serves, from religious institutions, art institutions, creative businesses, to small family-run hardware shops, all located in one area. Rochor also has a very long history. We find buildings here dating from the early 1800s. So you can see here the many typographies of Rochor, the old shop houses, family-run shops with open access to streets and many small public spaces. Because Rochor is very near the central business district in downtown Singapore, it also, of course, faces a lot of pressures to modernize. So now we find many hip cafes sprouting up right next to the old hardware stores and pressures from developers to build new condominiums. So our researchers in the medium scale approached Rochor by looking at the historical maps and historical documents from the early 1800s to present day. And as you can see, different time periods, the governance and urban development strategies for Rochor changed with time. Our researchers painstakingly look at the buildings and count the buildings as well as document their transformation for the past 100 over years. And they look at the survival and diversity of the buildings from Rochor from 1840. So as you can see, from 1930 to 1970, most of the buildings you see in red, most of them remain unchanged, because at this point it was due to the social structures and the time and the British rent control system. Then from 1970 to 2008, a lot of restructuring took place. Singapore gained independence, and a lot of buildings were demolished and new, larger buildings built in place. So urban planners typically look at a city with 30, maybe even 40-year time horizons. But as an academic research institution, I guess we have the luxury of looking at a much longer time frame and also looking back 200 years and proposing using our quantitative methods to analyze the building stock, proposing ways on how buildings representing different time periods in Singapore's history can be conserved. So then the researchers from our building technology teams looked at Rochor and saw a different thing. They saw that in Rochor there are many back lanes that are underutilized, and so there are it's 68,000 square meters of these back alleys in Rochor that are not used today because many of them have the air conditioning systems blowing out hot air into the space. And so it's very hot. It's also very inefficient because hot air rises, so the air conditioning systems on top have to take in warm air and then cool it all the way down again. So these lanes are underutilized. You might want to go through for a shortcut, but it's not very pleasant to walk there. These are the existing systems used today, very inefficient, hot, and noisy. And what we did was to propose, we designed a new system which uses water-cooled condensers and and connecting the air conditioning systems of different shop houses into a single system by a series of underground pipes. The results in our lab show that if the residents or the shop owners of Roadshow adopt this technology, they can achieve energy savings of up to 30 to 50%. And more significantly, these would open up the back lanes because now they would be cool, they wouldn't be unsightly, and we could think of having tree-lined walk passes or sheltered walkways for al fresco dining or walking there. And then the researchers from the simulation platform, they looked at how urban forms influence walkability. So as you can see, pedestrians choose how to walk based on line of sight. So the researchers in our simulation team looked at Roadshow and studied how certain modifications in the urban form can open up line of sight for pedestrians and encourage more people to walk where we would like them to walk. So you can see just the 3 or 4 adjustments to the urban form based on our simulations can encourage certain paths to be chosen by pedestrians.
About 1 minute more, please.
This is just my last slide, which is a video. So you can see this is the transport model of Singapore. And we developed a transport model with 5.4 million agents flowing through Singapore. And what you see is the zoomed-in version of the model looking at the Roadshow district. Different colors lighting up represent different people arriving at a certain location to perform a certain activity. So, for example, blue represents someone arriving for work, green represents someone arriving home, red represents someone arriving at a shop. And when you know where someone wants to be to do a certain activity at different times of the day, you can predict the demand for different modes of transport. And so now you see, based on the activity patterns, we simulate the demand for transport through the Roadshow area. If you can see, then there are some in red, congestion building up, and in green, the transport flows are still quite quick. So with our transport model of the whole of Singapore, we can zoom into certain areas and use the model to speak with urban planners and developers to test out scenarios like introducing a new bus route, how would that affect the transport demand, or introducing a new condominium here with a lot more people living there, how they would affect the transport system. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I hope that you've learned a bit about the Future Cities Lab, and I look forward to hearing your questions on how academic research can contribute to smart cities.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Now we'll go straight to Alex from Brazil. And of course, Alex will have 10 minutes as the other speakers, but then we'll go directly to the questions from the floor. And this session is scheduled to end about at 2 o'clock. We'll go a little bit over time. So just so you know, please.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm from Brazil. I'm Alex, a researcher of AgoraLab from Florianópolis. I'll talk about how a Brazilian city intends to use the smart city concepts as foundation to leverage its development. It's a different approach than Rio de Janeiro and other big Brazilian cities. You can see it. Florianópolis is located in a big island. It's also known as Floripa. It's as big as Ibiza, and it's the capital of Santa Catarina, a state in the south of Brazil. We have more than 400,000 inhabitants and a GDP between 4 and 5 billion euros. It's a special place. We call it the Magic Island for its more than 40 beautiful beaches and lovely landscapes. We also have a rich cultural and historic heritage, and is the second best tourist destination in Brazil, according to TripAdvisor. And for most of Brazilians, is the second most beautiful city of Brazil, just after Rio de Janeiro. Recently, it was considered the friendliest city in the world. And BBC described the island as a mix of Ibiza, Saint-Tropez, and Hawaii. It's really a good place to visit, and I strongly recommend it. and all of you are invited to go there. But even better, to live in the city. We have a high quality life, in the best quality life among Brazilian capitals. And it's remarkable in education, family income, safety, and life expectancy. But even more than tourism, the great vocation of Floripa is innovation. We have good universities, great support system for innovation and business creation. And ICT sector is the main economic force. It grows fast, more than 20% a year, and it's responsible for more than a half of total municipal income taxes. So we have a great vocation and a great potential to become a big player in tech arena. The city is dreaming big to become a kind of Silicon Valley of Brazil, and one of the most dynamic cities in the world. However, in terms of absolute numbers, Floripa is still far from being a Silicon Valley with beaches. It's not a big player if you compare to São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and other Brazilian big cities. For instance, a city that wants to become Silicon Valley must have a good rank in the mobile application production. However, we are only the number 17. So we have a huge potential, but the actual size is too little. But we have other kind of problems. We have pollutions, we have traffic jams, we have illegal occupation, also slums, and an increasing urban violence. That's results of recent fast population growth and unplanned urbanization. Our challenge was to propose a project that could address simultaneously the city's economic development and the improvement of social equity, the sustainability, and the life quality. That is, creating a smart island. The core element of this project is the Floripa 21 district. This region has been created from Sapiens Park and its surroundings. Sapiens Park is a science and technology park being constructed in the north of the island. In this region, we want to create the first Brazilian smart city region, a knowledge district, and a urban living lab. And we will use this district to attract and to retain creative and knowledge-based professionals, entrepreneurs, and companies. The main concepts behind this district is to be a vibrant, cool, and sustainable neighborhood where people could live, work, study, and have fun in the same area, with high concentration of creative and smart people, and to be a symbol, a propagator of a sustainable lifestyle. Our main guidelines are attraction of technology-based companies, promotion of migration of entrepreneurs and professionals, a social-economic digital inclusion of the current inhabitants, most of them are poor people, generation and commercialization of knowledge, the new economy, a place to test new practices, laws, and ways of living, a lifestyle aligned to the sustainability and social equity, and an inspiration and benchmarking for other regions of the city, the state, and the country. Our project has been guided by the 6 integrated dimensions and the main indicators used in the European Smart Cities ranking. It's a holistic and anthropocentric approach and includes concerns about governance, people, environment, living, mobility, and economy. We also got inspiration in the successful project worldwide, especially Ventedosa, Aroba, Barcelona, Helsinki, and the Australian cities of Melbourne and Brisbane. The project was proposed by our lab, but it's already incorporated to the Sapiens Park strategies. It's one of the actions of the municipal development strategy, and is going to be sponsored by the government of Santa Catarina, which intends to use this project as a model for other cities of the state. We are currently listening to and engaging all sectors of the society. We are co-designing the solutions, the actions, and the programs. It's a kind of middle up-down approach. It's not top-down, it's not only bottom-up. We are doing this with government, companies, NGOs, academia, and citizens, representatives. The preliminary results, we have an initial diagnosis and a lot of information that we are compiling and trying to discover what will be the priorities. We are still in the beginning, in the first stages. We have the conceptual and the strategic drivers, and we are going to finish the compilation of all this information, and soon we will be launching the first public-private people partnerships. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. PPP, that's new to me. Let's go to questions right away from the floor, if there are any. There's one right there. There's a microphone coming your way. And please present yourself as well.
Hello, good morning. My name is Sergio Correa. I'm from Brazil. I have been living in Barcelona for the last 17 years. I don't want to take too much time on the floor. I know time is running short. But more than a question, I think I have comments. Some quick ones. But I think it was an extraordinarily exciting presentation, all of you. I worked closely with the city of Malmo some years ago in Agora Cities for People. Worked with Gunnar, whom you probably know. So it's a fantastic project, and I commend you for that. Beautiful work. IBM has just invited me to be a moderator in the Smarter Connection and LinkedIn, which is fantastic. So I thank you for that, and I think you're doing an extraordinary job as well. Singapore, I worked with Space Syntax in London. So when you showed the examples of spaces being reorganized and small interventions that actually make the pedestrian flow better, this is fantastic. You know, I think it's such a simple, common sense strategy, you know. And it's also refreshing for me, being an academic, a researcher, to see that, in fact, people are actually listening to us, professors and academics, because sometimes they say, oh, they're just university guys, you know, they don't know much. And being Brazilian, Floripa, which I haven't been to, by the way, I should, fantastic job. And finally, Rosario, I think, great city, great ideas, fantastic what you're doing. Smart city, very well. So thank you all for this great and informative session.
Thank you for this comment on all speakers. Anyone else? There's a hand down there, please.
Hi there, my name is Peter van Heiningen from Stellenbosch in South Africa. And we are busy with a project exactly the same as what you're doing in Florian, is that correct? Absolutely fantastic. One of the challenges that we have is this unbelievable inequality between the rich and the poor. Stellenbosch is probably one of the most unequal societies in the whole world. There are about 30 billionaires that live there, but there are also about 60,000 people that live below the poverty line. So I'm sure you have similar challenges in this island as well. How do you include that? What strategy do you use to include the poor into smart cities?
It's working? Good question, eh? Yeah, we have this problem in Brazil in all cities, including Florianópolis. We have this problem, not as big as in other big metropolis. But we think the way to solve this problem and to engage all kind of people is not to try to sell a smart city project from the top. We really think technology is not the best way to start from the technology point. We are starting from the people. So we invited the representatives of the community to know our main ideas and to listen to then what would be their dreams for the region. The place where we are building Floripa 21 is used to be a fishing village, and we want to maintain this identity. We don't like to build 10-floor buildings with glass outside and become Asian city, because Asian city has another identity. It's good for Songdo, for instance. But for us, we want to have a more relaxed environment. And the people who live there also want the same thing. So we are engaging these people and listen to what kind of city, what kind of neighborhood they want to have there. And then in the second step, technology could be used to make this dream come true. And of course, we will need some kind of center of operation like Rio has for IBM. But initially, we want to create a people with a high quality of life for everybody, not only for the people who will be working as developers, as knowledge professionals, but also the fishermen that we want to maintain them there in the same place they live nowadays. But their sons could be working in our companies or could be offering products and services to the other kind of people will be working there. So it must be, before it's smart in the sense of a city that thinks by itself, it must be a sustainable and nice, cool city. So that's why we are achieving and getting the attention of all kind of people in our city.
All right. There's a comment now from Monica, and after that I have one final question, and then we'll wrap up. But please, Monica.
Gracias. Creo que nuestras ciudades latinoamericanas tienen mucho que ver con ese desafío de la igualdad de oportunidades y de posibilidades por la desigualdad social, y en nuestra ciudad trabajamos fuertemente, además de haber obtenido un premio por Smart City de IBM, e incorporar tecnología, sobre todo en diferentes procesos, también para la población que menos accede. Uno de los temas más importantes que hemos desarrollado en los 32 centros de convivencia barrial que tenemos, que tiene que ver con que los niños con mayor vulnerabilidad social tengan acceso a mecanismos tecnológicos. A su vez, el país tiene un proceso de incorporación tecnológica a nivel escolar, y hemos incorporado en cada uno de los espacios juveniles que tenemos diferentes procesos de incorporación a la tecnología. Y en cuanto al desafío de trabajar en un proceso de mayor igualdad social, tenemos varios procesos en marcha, entre esos uno que tiene que ver con huertas urbanas, trabajos de integración social que creemos que aportan a esa ciudad que, para ser sustentable, debe generar igualdad de oportunidades. No solo es sustentable, creemos nosotros, y lo hacemos desde la reducción del uso energético, de mejorar la movilidad, obviamente de generar una infraestructura urbana más sustentable, sino que también una sociedad, en nuestros casos, es sustentable cuando genera acciones de igualar oportunidades de aquellos sectores que tienen mayor desigualdad dentro de la sociedad, y dedicamos gran parte de nuestras acciones en ese camino, inclusive en la accesibilidad tecnológica, que también abre oportunidades de muchos de estos jóvenes, sobre todo, que no la han tenido. Así que trabajamos en ese camino, y creo que son los desafíos que compartimos, obviamente, en esta relación sur-sur.
Great, thank you. I have one final question to the panel, and actually I'll address it directly to Ilmar Reepalu, and it's actually about the role of leadership here. Now we have two mayors, and Ilmar, your reflections upon making a city smart. I mean, you have been doing this since the 80s, the transformation that you have been doing. Could you just give us some final words or your thoughts about what does it really require to make such a big change for a city, and also what you see cities should do to be prepared to become smarter, as we have heard a couple of other days? What kind of leadership and what kind of collaboration with the private sector, with the civic sector, and with government do you see as crucial?
I think, first of all, it's very important to include the stakeholders, and the stakeholders are the citizen, to understand that the city are the citizen. And to do that, don't try to make these plans how it should look in 20 years or 25 years. Start with the knowledge of the citizen. What are the challenges today? What are the obstacles that they feel today? Involve them, involve the business sector, involve the universities in having that first very important discussion of what are our challenges today, and then try to find what are the common vision. Where do we want to be? How do we want other people to look upon ourselves as a city in 10 years or 15 years? And if you use the time for make that properly, then you will have so much force. For instance, in the city of Malmo, the vision that I told you here, the story of how we changed, that could be told by anybody in the city. That could be told by the taxi driver in the city, because that involvement, that gives force, and that started the creativity. Because don't make the plans how it should look like, but try to put up the beacon in what direction we want to go, so it gives open the creativeness for all the different business sectors, for people. What can I do from my point of view? What can my business do from my point of view of moving this city in that direction? And when you manage that, then it's enormous force that you create of that, and an enormous proudness among people, and that I think is very important.
And with these words, I would like to thank the mayor, Monica, Alex, and Cheryl, and Sylvie, and Ilmar for some high caliber presentations and good discussion. Thank you very much.